The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Well, welcome back to another show. And of course, me and Matt are actually looking back at some things that have been in the press over the past couple of days. How you doing, Matt? All right?
Yeah, not too bad. All good.
Good. And of course, great victory over Nottingham Forest this weekend. And somebody in particular has been getting a lot of attention. Of course, the players have been getting a lot of attention, but somebody else has as well. Now, before we get stuck into it, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So, I'll tell you what, Matt, let's take it away and let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So, Iraola is in the headlines, and are we surprised? No. However, are we surprised with the team that he's being linked with? Perhaps we shall discuss. But here we go. Football Insider breaking. Andoni Iraola exit. Bournemouth boss set for top Premier League job offer. Express. Tottenham have obvious Ange Postecoglou replacement as sack looms after Leicester loss. Of course, they mention Iraola. Tottenham news. Tottenham have to pay 10 million to hire Iraola amid Postecoglou sack news. And it goes on. The Sun. New Spurs. Tottenham next manager latest odds, Andoni Iraola clear favourite if Ange Postecoglou is sacked. Football Tribe. Tottenham will have to cough up 10 million to hire Iraola amid Postecoglou sack news. Football London. Andoni Iraola, Eden Terzic and two other options to replace Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham. Wow. Are we surprised, Matt?
No, I wouldn't say surprised, but I think, if we look at his stats, for example, like his Cherries stats. This is obviously this season and last season. And not only just the stats, but obviously more importantly, the football that we're seeing on the pitch.
Yeah,
it's evident that at some point, we're going to lose the manager to a let's face it, a bigger club.
Yeah.
And a top club at that. But yeah, you can see from like these stats here that club like Tottenham, with their dire position they're in, are looking to replace. This is his career stats here. 299 matches, and he's had a career win of 118 with 39.46 win percentage. So he dishes out decent percentages. I mean, this season, his win percentage there, you can see he's averaging 1.79 points a game at a 50% win percentage. So you can see why, Spurs are, looking at it. I'm sure Spurs aren't the only club that are looking at him, but obviously monitoring him. Obviously, clubs like City have been mentioned over the time, haven't they? And as well as a couple of others. But yeah, you can see why they're sniffing.
Yes, I can see, and to be honest, we kind of expected this. We kind of expected clubs to be looking over Iraola, and I have got some very, very, very strong views on this. We expect it. Iraola's done a fantastic job here. He did a fantastic job at Rayo Vallecano, beating the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid. He got them into the Champions League places at one point, and this is for a club that is probably the size of Luton Town in La Liga. So wherever he's gone, Mirandes, for example, when he was there, he pulled them away from the drop zone. So he's done a great job wherever he's been. However, and I watched Darren Bent on TalkSport yesterday, and he was sat there, and he turned around and he said, "Well, Postecoglou needs to get sacked, and we'll just go and get Iraola." I want to turn around and say to all the Spurs fans, they must be absolutely dreaming at this point in time. They must be in cloud cuckoo land if they think Andoni Iraola is going to want to go to Spurs. Yes, Spurs are a bigger club than AFC Bournemouth. We know that. You know that, Matt. They're a lot bigger club. However, look at their statistics this season. Look at where they are in the league. Look at where we are in the league. Look at what we've got to achieve. Look at the side that Iraola's built. Is he really going to want to throw that away for a club which is a complete and utter basket case? And it is a complete and utter basket case there at White Hart Lane, or whatever you want to bloody call it now. And, Darren Bent, all these... The press are going to come out. The press are going to come out, and they are going to link every single Bournemouth player with somebody at some point because we are playing so well. But Matt, tell me if I'm going down the wrong track here, but I cannot see in a million years why he would want to go to Spurs. When, let's be honest, Spurs fans, I've got to be honest. Why would he want to go to Spurs when Arteta, to be fair, if he doesn't win anything this year, is on shaky ground, and he could go to a lot bigger club in Arsenal? I know that's going to be very controversial, but he could go to a lot bigger club in Arsenal, a club which are there, a club which will be in the Champions League next year, not a club that are going to be or have been fighting relegation for the most of this season. And, we'll get on to the boardroom in a moment. I've had my say. We've had Spurs fans have their say as well. And, I think all of the Spurs fans that we've had on have, said in particular about a certain person at Spurs, which is making things a lot very difficult. So, what's your view on it, Matt?
I mean, for the minute, I'll concentrate on Iraola. Reason being is because we'll look at Ange and some previous managers at Tottenham, and then I think that's probably the best time to maybe, discuss the board side of things from. And I think everybody knows what name you're going to mention.
Yes.
But, and you've touched on it. Is it a good move for Iraola, or is it a disaster? I mean, for me, if Spurs were, in the top four this season, I think possibly, and they were coming in for him, ready to pay whatever the release clause is rumored to be, 10 million, but whatever it is, potentially, possibly his head could be turned. But I don't think it's a good move for the manager personally. If it was another club, it could be a different conversation. For example, if it was Man United, I would be saying it's probably not a good move for the manager. So it's not just a case it's Spurs. It depends what club. I think if he goes to Spurs, I don't think he's going to really get the backing that he's had at Bournemouth, or potentially work with players that he wants to bring in, even though he says his conferences, it's down to the technical side of the club that bring the players in. I mean, he must know kind of what players they're bringing in, and there must be discussions, but obviously they deal with that side of things. So I can't see really him working at Spurs, because I don't think really they really back their managers. So I personally think if he was to move there, which I can't see it, but definitely in the future we're going to be having a conversation where he is potentially going somewhere. But I think a move to Spurs for me just spells disaster. I just think, and from his perspective, he's got a team playing such great football. Everybody's in the headlines, aren't they? Your Semenyos, your Kluiverts, your Taras, and he's going to be, because of what they're doing on the pitch under his mentorship. So, yeah, for me, spells disaster. A move to Spurs for him would spell disaster.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with you. Now, a lot of Spurs fans are going to be watching this and they're going to be going, well, they're Bournemouth fans. Of course, they're going to turn around and say that they don't want this man who has taken this tiny little club, to the edge of Europe and with a shout of the Champions League. However, it is so much more than that. This man, Iraola, has got the trust of the players. These players have, repaid his faith. He's got a good working relationship. Now, does he want to start again? Now, the big question that I'm going to throw your way, Matt, and this is something that has crossed my mind, is if we know the vultures are circling around the likes of Kirkes, Zabania, Semenyo, you name it. The vultures are circling, and those big clubs will circle because we're doing well and we are a smaller club. However, if those players are picked off and taken, to other clubs, might that be in the back of Iraola's mind and thinking, well, I am going to have to basically retrain this group or get a new batch of players and work again with them there will be a core that will stay with the club, the likes of Lewis Cook, Ryan Christie. I think they'll still be wanted by other clubs, but I think those players who have been here a lot longer are more likely to stay, if that makes sense. But there is going to be those stars, Dean Howson, for example, who could be picked up, and could that go through Iraola's mind?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. But is it enough to make you want to move club? I mean, I know the vultures are circling, like you say, but realistically, are we going to lose all those players? Dean Howson looks like it's quite a possibility if you believe what you read in the press, that and he has a release clause which starts this summer. So
yeah,
Chelsea apparently, in several publications are adamant that they want to trigger that clause. So, but are we going to lose everybody? I mean, it depends where we finish, doesn't it? If we finish in a European place, I think the likes of Kluivert, Semenyo, I think he might be at that point in his career that might be a case of now or never to move to a big club potentially.
Yeah.
But your Taverniers, your Kluiverts, your Evan Nielsen's, players like that, I think will go on the European journey. So I think it really depends on where we finish. And if there's clubs interested still in Iraola that have vacant manager positions at that time. if that kind of makes sense.
It does, yeah. And I think sometimes the manager needs those players to stay, as well as the players need the manager to stay. Um, and I think that good relationship, between the squad, it is such a tight knit group that we've got here that it would be. I think Iraola would be look back if he did choose to go somewhere else, and especially Spurs, and might regret it. But I tell you what, let's have a little look at this in a bit more detail. You got a little bit more here, and
Hmm.
we'll run through it. So here we go. So this is from To the Lane and Back. And to be fair, this is quite a fair point. I think it would cost a lot. Journalist makes finances claim for Ange replacement manager. Iraola looks unlikely. Now, the reason why finance comes up, again, will come back to one man. The North Londoners may need to pay a significant compensation if they are to get their hands on Andoni Iraola as their next head coach. Bournemouth Echo journalist Alex Smith on Tottenham News said. He insists that neither Iraola nor the Cherries would be entertaining any potential Levy approach until the off-season, and even then, any move that will take the former Rayo Vallecano manager to White Hart Lane appears unlikely. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Tottenham News, Smith said, if Spurs were to come in for him, I don't think he or the club would entertain any approaches until the summer at the earliest. And even then, I'm not sure Iraola would leave before the end of his contract. I think it would cost a lot for Spurs to tempt him away from Cherries, and the club would be in a good position to ask for a lot in compensation too, particularly if Iraola steers Bournemouth to a higher finish than Spurs and a European spot. I think he and the club would not consider a move to another side. Replacing Ange Postecoglou with the Basque manager looks like a difficult prospect for Tottenham at the moment, given the fact that Iraola has taken the Cherries on a path to success. And this positive trajectory will make him want to see it through, moreover. The Lily Whites would have to offer a substantial transfer fee to secure Iraola's signature, be it now or in the summer. While Andoni Iraola is undoubtedly one of the best managers in the Premier League and would be a strong candidate to have at Hotspur Way, Tottenham may need to look elsewhere. I think that's a very, very, very fair piece there, and it's a good point that has been made by Smith here, because what he did at Rayo Vallecano was he saw out the whole of his contract. Now, I know I commented at the time, I was a Gary O'Neill fan, but when we sacked Gary O'Neill to bring in Iraola, it was an opportunist move. It was because Iraola had become available at that particular point in time. I think Richard Hughes knew about Iraola all along, and he was waiting for that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
But I cannot see Iraola wanting to give up a job halfway through. He doesn't seem like that sort of man. He doesn't seem like that sort of manager. The only reason he would do that is if he was sacked by a club. And let's be honest, it's not going to be AFC Bournemouth that's going to do that.
No. You've probably got a point, because I mean, you look at the likes of Pep. I don't think he's ever broke a contract, has he? And he tends to see a contract out. So yeah, I like you say with this piece here, I think there's a lot of don't think truth's the word, but what
Yeah,
potentially may happen in the long run. Again, it's the whole where he says about will a club tempt him away that's not going to finish as high as Bournemouth. I just can't see it.
I think he's a man of his words,
Yeah,
Iraola. And I think,
Yeah.
this seems to be a trend with Spanish managers. It seems to be a trend with Spanish managers, and especially in that part of the country in Spain, the Basque
Mhm.
region. And I think, he will see his contract through. If his contract comes to an end before that, it'll either be the club, which AFC Bournemouth aren't going to sack him, let's be honest, or he's going to think, right, okay, I've taken this club as far as I can take them, but he would do it at a convenient time. He's not going to do it mid-season, a couple of days before we play Liverpool, for example. It's not going to happen. But, I would not be surprised, considering the situation Spurs are in and the situation with Ange Postecoglou, if there has been inquiries. But I'm hoping that Bill Foley, Simon Francis, whoever, Neil Blake has just shut the door straight in their face and said, look, get in your corner. Look at where you are in the league. We don't even need to entertain it. That's, my view.
I mean, from a lot of this being in the press, sort of like over the last sort of say week or so,
Yeah.
and even more so since Ange lost against Leicester the other day.
Hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me soon if you see a new deal on the table for the manager from the club and
Yeah.
signed. Because I think he's still got a fairly young family. He's living in a good area. And I think the guy seems very, very happy here. But, and with his history of seeing his contract out, I think the club may put a good extension in front of him before the end of the season.
Exactly. Does he really want to uproot his family to London? Yeah, might do what, other people have done. And we know Callum Wilson's done it in the past, and Eddie when he first went up to Newcastle.
Harry Redknapp done it for years.
Exactly. He might travel from Bournemouth or Poole, wherever he lives, all the way up to London. That might be an option. But at the same time, I personally don't think that this is a good move at all. And you've got some more, haven't you, here? And let's have a little look at this, because this is interesting.
I mean,
Read.
this is exactly why I think it is a bad move for him. You got 3 managers here. These are the last 3 permanent managers of Spurs. And if you notice, let's start with Mourinho.
Yeah.
So he was sacked a few days before the EFL final, wasn't he? The Carabao Cup final.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I know at the time, I don't think maybe the board were happy with him, but I think, no disrespect to Ryan Mason, who took interim charge for that game, but I think they probably would have had a better chance of winning it with Mourinho than with an interim manager. So it just seemed a bit bizarre. I think it's something to do with a clause in the contract, wasn't it? If they sacked him, they'd have to have paid. Wasn't there some money thing with Mourinho, if I remember rightly? They had to sack him before a certain date. Or no, if he won a trophy. There's something to do with if he won the trophy, wasn't it? Am I right?
Yeah, and hold that thought as well. Just keep that in the back of your mind, because we'll come back onto that.
Okay.
But carry on.
But then he moves to Roma and he wins the Conference League.
Yeah.
Now, some people say it's the Mickey Mouse Cup of the European Free, but it's a European trophy regardless. And he's now at Fenerbahce, who currently sits second in the league.
Yeah.
Now let's look at Nuno. Okay, 4 months in charge, and then he was dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's gone to Saudi. Okay, not the greatest league in the world, but he's come out of Saudi with the Pro League title and the Super Cup.
Yeah.
And then his current club, we all know what he's doing at Forest. Okay, they had a bad day against us the other day, but he's been consistently in European places all season.
He's done a
with
fantastic
Forest.
job.
done a brilliant
really
job.
good job.
Conte, another great manager, a manager that is a winner, goes to
Yeah.
clubs and is a winner. So he left after being knocked out of a couple of the cups, wasn't it? The Champions League and the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And I believe he was 2 points ahead of Newcastle. And Spurs were fourth.
Mm.
In a decent position.
Yeah, I
And
remember
he left by mutual consent. He's now at Napoli, and they sit top of Serie A.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this, as you can see, is it necessarily the manager's fault? This is the way I'm thinking. Obviously, I'm not a Spurs fan. Spurs fans may say different. Some Spurs fans may agree. Some Spurs fans may not. But okay, take Nuno out of the equation of this, because he's won some stuff in the Saudi league, but you've got a born winner in Mourinho who's won trophies at pretty much every club apart from Tottenham, I think.
Yeah.
And Fenerbahce at the minute, where he is, but they're sitting second in the league. And then you've got Conte, who's won trophies at pretty much every club he's been at, I think. And they're currently sat top of Serie A.
Mm-hmm.
Does this have, do you know what I mean? Does it, maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but I think when you look at it, is it always the manager's fault at Spurs? And this is why I don't think a move for Iraola would be good on the basis of these last three.
Completely agree. I don't think anybody, even a logical Spurs fan, could disagree with what you've just said there. This is an absolute disaster waiting to happen. It's an absolute disaster for any manager, be it Fabian Hertzler, if he went to Spurs, or Ruben Amorim, if he was taken up by Spurs, Iraola, Pep, Jurgen Klopp. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Look at those three managers. And I'm not taking Nuno out of this equation, to be honest, Matt, because I personally think Nuno didn't have enough time at Spurs. He was trying to do something with Spurs. He was trying to model something at Spurs. And then, he was sacked after 4 months. Antonio Conte has won things every club he's bloody been to. And then all of us, he can't win anything at Spurs. Now, there has to be a common denominator. Jose, on the verge of the, Carabao Cup final, on the eve of the Carabao Cup final, they decide, I tell you what, we're not used to winning things. We're going to sack him. And there is a common denominator at Spurs why they haven't been successful. It's not players. It's not the managers, it's not the club. As much as people turn around and say, Spursy, and Spursy's a word and things like that, they have got by far at this point in time, the nicest looking ground in the Premier League. They have got a ground that has, an F whatever you call it, a Formula track that goes round there as well. It's not, of course, F1, but they've got all that. They've got events there. They've got bloody everything.
NFL,
they've got the whole shebang at Spurs, and I think we know, and I'm going to say it now, there's a common denominator, and that is Daniel Levy. That is why Tottenham Hotspur have not been successful. That is why Tottenham Hotspur would be an absolute disaster for Iraola. And to be honest, you might be watching this, Spurs fans, and you might be going, well, we're a bigger club, we'll get Iraola, blah, 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 blah. You won't sign Iraola because Daniel Levy won't want to stick his hand in his fucking pocket. I'm sorry, but he just won't want to do it. Look at what he's done. Look at what he spent. I think he had a nosebleed the day he signed Dominic Solanke from us. I would say that Spurs fans need to look within. And, look at those three managers. Those are three of the most successful managers in football. Yet Nuno is probably an up and coming manager, but look at what he's doing this season, and think Spurs fans need to think that could have been Spurs, that could have been us, but it wouldn't be us because Marinakis spends a lot more money in more sensible places, doesn't focus on a stadium and tries to make money out of that. Daniel Levy is the biggest problem at Tottenham Hotspur, and the reason why this would be an absolute disaster for Iraola. I think the man would hate it after a couple of months of being there and thinking, why the hell didn't I stick with Bill Foley and the guys at Bournemouth?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that one. Yeah, it's like I say, I think it's just be a terrible move for Iraola, to be honest.
Be a bloody disaster, to be
and
fair.
like I say, if it was another club, I mean, okay, pick a club at random. If it was Man City, you could see him fitting in there. Even dare I say it, somewhere like Real Madrid.
Yeah.
PSG, somewhere like that, you could see him kind of fitting in there and being successful. Barcelona, I mean, there's a lot of clubs out there that he would be very, very successful at, and I think would work really well at. But I just think Spurs, I just don't think he'd have the backing. And when you're talking about the backing, that leads you on to this kind of question here. And Spurs fans will know more about this than obviously us too, because we don't watch Spurs week in, week out. But
yeah,
he's had a difficult time there. They've had 11 players out injured. I mean, I know we've got our injuries, but
yeah,
there's a different momentum about our side, isn't there? Everyone seems to be working for the manager. People are playing out of position and overperforming. Like your Lewis Cook at right back and your Atara up front, and so people are playing out of position and but playing for the manager, playing for the team.
Yeah.
When you've got 11 managers out as 11 players out as a manager, it must be an uphill task. But there don't appear to be any backing for him in this transfer window or anything, does it? I know our club hasn't done masses of work in the transfer window, but the work we have done in the transfer window has been very good and very looking to the future. But Spurs just don't seem to have done anything in this window to sort of support the manager. And let's be honest, they are in a relegation fight.
Well, they are, and
because you lose a few more games and a few more teams below you pick up some points, they're in big trouble.
Well, Everton could overtake them. They have got a game in hand, albeit that game in hand is against Liverpool, as I found out earlier on today when I spoke to Peter Hooton from the farm about our game at Liverpool. But the thing is, they could easily be overtaken by Everton. And Everton have been shocking this season under Sean Dyche, and David Moyes has gone in there and transformed them, which is showing what a good manager can do. Now, I'm gonna be both ruthless, but quite kind to Ange Postecoglou. Now, I was very surprised when he got the job.
I didn't think he'd be here. Sorry, I didn't think he'd last this long. But sorry, carry on.
I don't think the Scottish League, as we've seen, Steven Gerrard come from the Scottish League. Okay, yeah, he played most of his football in the Premier League, but learned his trade as a manager in Scotland, come down and, struggled at Villa. Let's be fair, he struggled at Villa. Now, Ange has come from Celtic, did a good job up there. But then again, it's a two-team league. That's not being disrespectful to the rest of the teams in Scotland. There is two teams who you could say are good enough to actually win that league. That's Celtic and Rangers. He's come to a very, very big club in Spurs. Now, I'm going to be kind about him. I really do like this bloke. I actually really, really, really like this bloke. He is a decent human being. He's a decent human being. He obviously cares about his players. He obviously will defend his players and, to more, the board in front of the press. So he's a very loyal man. But here's the big but. Do Spurs need a change at this point in time? Now, he has got an injury crisis. Iraola's got an injury crisis. You look at other teams out there. Lopetegui had an injury crisis. There's lots of teams. Hurstler has an injury crisis. So there's lots of teams that have injury crisis throughout the season. Yep, Spurs is pretty bad, without a shadow of a doubt.
Mainly because they haven't got the depth, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But, and again, it's a very big but. Look at what Iraola is doing, and actually moving players into different positions, adapting styles, and look at what Ange is doing. Ange is a very, very rigid manager. He is what I would call, and this is no disrespect to him, but it's probably the era he's in. He's an old school manager. He is the likes of Sean Dyche. He's the likes of Sam Allardyce, Alan Pardew. All these managers that are old school managers in a league which is now becoming very fast flowing football. Managers like Iraola, Pep Guardiola, Arteta, you name it, Hurstler. All these managers will adapt. They will change. Nuno, for example, they had Nuno, but they just didn't give him the time. That is the problem that Ange has. And I think Ange's time there, regardless of the injuries, is probably running out. I'd love to see him actually turn it round, this bloke, because like I say, I do genuinely like the man. He's a decent human being. But I don't. There's going to be a point where they can't. However, and this is the big thing for me, is they can't, go right. Okay, well, they're going to have to do it at a certain point, and that biting point. Now, is that biting point now? I don't think it is. What they're going to have to do is either see out the season with Ange, and then when everybody is on zero again, then appoint somebody who they really want. See where they are. Maybe they will win the Carabao Cup under Ange. Maybe they will be able to attract somebody different. Maybe they'll have to do what we did at AFC Bournemouth and look at, right, okay, somebody's doing well at Vallecano or Girona or somewhere like that, and go, right, we'll go in for their manager. And I cannot see Daniel Levy shelling out, the millions of pounds to get Iraola. And I can't see him shelling out the millions of pounds to get rid of Ange Postecoglou. And I stand by my word, they haven't backed Ange. They should give Ange a little bit to play with. And I think it's a telling sign that they haven't, that he's not really got a future there. And if he's not got a future there, the players' heads will probably go down. I think they probably like him. I think they probably like him because he does defend them. But their players' heads will go down, and they think, well, Angie isn't going to be here for much longer. Really like the bloke, and that is the reason why they're in. Certainly, all point back to one man, and that is Daniel Levy, and he will be there after Ange Postecoglou's get there. If Iraola goes there, he'll be there after Iraola leaves Tottenham Hotspur, or whoever goes in, and that is the biggest problem at Spurs and why they are failing.
Yeah, that's a good point. But in terms of is Spurs gonna burst our bubble? I don't think so.
I hope not. I hope
don't
not.
think so.
And I honestly, if Iraola is sat there, and you never know, he might do. He might watch it. Simon Francis might watch it. Bill Foley might watch, these channels. Who knows? They might want to get the fans' opinions. My words to Bill Foley is give Iraola a new contract, and my message to Iraola is don't even consider it, because it is an absolute basket case of a club. And if you really do want to progress at some point, you are going to have, if you carry on doing what you're doing with this group of players, he's got a great group of players here. He'd have to start again at Spurs. If he carries on doing what he's doing, he might get a chance at a bigger club like Arsenal. That pleased them. That pleased the Spurs fans that are tuning in. A bigger club like Arsenal, a club that has got a solid set of players, a club that plays the same sort of way as AFC Bournemouth do. Probably, yes, more advanced players than us. Who knows? Barcelona, Real Madrid, somebody might come in and take him back to Spain, for example. And hey, I think, maybe I reckon that's possibly his ambition one day.
Well, yeah, but yeah, who knows? It's gonna, obviously time will tell, as they say. But I was on a show on Sunday evening on Early Doors, and we were talking about Iraola and how successful he's been so far this season, and one of the fans on there made a fairly decent point, and he was saying, these big clubs that being linked with him, this, that, and the other. He said, really, Iraola needs to stay at Bournemouth because, firstly, he's doing a good job here, and secondly, if you're a big club looking at him, he's done it for one season. Now, I'm adamant if he stays at Bournemouth, he will do it again.
Oh, yeah.
But I do kind of see his opinion. Can he do it next season? And then if he does it next season, his point was, well, then you've got a manager that's going to move on to a top club. Or a bit bigger club, should I say, sorry. So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting point as well, and that is true. Iraola he done great last season. He's excelling this season, and he's got the squad excelling. But his point was, can he do it again? And he was looking at it from like the big clubs, if they want to take him. He thinks it might be a risk for big clubs at the moment because he's only proven to be able to do it this season, and obviously this season's only just over halfway through, isn't it? So
yeah,
that I thought was an interesting point as well. But
very well made point as well, and fair play, well done to whoever come out with that as well.
That was, I think, I can't remember now. Sorry, I can't remember now. There's quite a few people on there, but good guy. I think he's been on this channel before, actually.
Yeah,
a West Ham fan. But like I say, I don't think Spurs will come and burst our bubble with Iraola this soon. Let's just hope that this ages well. But yeah, I can't see it. I don't think they will burst our bubble anytime soon.
Why would he want to go to that basket case? It really it is a basket case. I'm sure Solanke's probably regretted it now. He's probably thinking, bloody hell.
Yeah, I mean, from Dom's perspective, I mean, unfortunately for him, he picked up an injury, I think, in his first or second game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he's sort of gone on a bit of a goal scoring spree to a certain degree. And now he's got injured again. Apparently, he doesn't need surgery, does it? But he's out again. And obviously, it must be frustrating for him because obviously he's seen Spurs slip down the table and he can't contribute. And then he must be looking at the other end of the table thinking, maybe what if I had stayed?
Exactly. So Iraola, think about that. Don't go to what is, the most beautiful stadium probably in the Premier League. It is a lovely, beautiful stadium. It's great for NFL. It's great for F1 or F0, whatever it is. But it's no good for football managers because they don't have any luck there and they're going to get driven mad by Daniel Levy. There we are. I don't think I've got anything more to add. Have you got anything more to add?
No.
Well, all it is for it is Iraola, sign a contract. Bill, get that contract in front of him. And subscribe, hit the bell on this channel as well, because we'll provide you all the Bournemouth news. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.